The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Hooray for Hollywood, where stars are living large, in mansions with their servants and their credit cards in charge, with fame that's fleeting, but the egos never change, where everyone's a genius, except the ones who really arrange. Hooray for Hollywood, where the scandals always sell, where every whispered secret is a new tabloid's tell. Oh, how we adore the endless red carpet galore. Hooray for Hollywood, where less is always more.
Yes, sir, less is always more. Ooh. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages,
all of them
are listening to a Radulich broadcasting. You don't know what I was doing.
Oh,
how you doing?
You can't.
You can't fool me, you pervert.
There, that's the closest I'll give you to that.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you.
As I've heard it described recently, poles and holes. How you doing?
Are listening to a Radulich broadcasting premiere podcast. Damn you, Hollywood!
We should shut this down and start over. This is
is your host, Interruptus McGee, yes, Interruptus McGeeus, and I'm Stutterus. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Winfree. Yay!
Okay, so everybody, if you want to know why Mark and I are just
slap happy,
this train blew up on the tracks, did not even get out of the station. This is our art piece about this movie we're discussing. Blew up on the launch pad. We're talking about Gladiator II.
Before I read the wiki, let me address the elephant in the room. Everyone who might be tuning into this or will go afterwards, like, well, what was Damn You Hollywood tonight? I missed it. What did they talk about? Clearly, they have to talk about Wicked, right? Wicked was the #1 movie of the weekend. We'll talk about that in about an hour. As I predicted, every woman on Earth saw Wicked this weekend.
Not every woman, but the majority.
Yeah. It has become a present day cultural centerpiece. People who don't go to the movies or follow the movie industry are aware of Wicked and saw it.
Wicked is. Hang on. Well, let me phrase it this way, maybe.
Just go.
Wicked is in execution what everyone thought Barbie was going to be in execution.
So the question then remains, why are the two guys who are on the pulse of modern day movie making
right on the cutting edge of pop culture? We are
we are the Waldorf and Statler of movie criticism and industry criticism. Why aren't we talking about Wicked? I said it last week. Gladiator had this date first, and look, I don't know how well these movies or how badly these movies are going to perform. I'm not Robert, who thinks every movie is going to perform poorly. This guy comes on here and he talks about Deadpool and Wolverine's not going to make money. Get the fuck out of here.
Hang on. In fairness, I said Deadpool and Wolverine was not a sure thing. That's the extent of what I said. It's not a guarantee.
Right. My point is,
Inside Out 2, pretty much a sure thing, all things considered.
I tend to be fairly positive, and sometimes to my own detriment, and trustworthiness as a commenter. Robert tends to be overly negative and thinks everything is going to not make money, so you shouldn't trust him either. But when we get together, we form Voltron. No, when we get together, between the two of us, we have a yin and yang thing going on where you can mostly kind of get a good idea of how things are going to do. But the reality is we don't know. We take our best guesses, we take educated guesses, and when they moved Wicked, where I had it on the schedule was never going to be any different from where it is now. because Wicked was supposed to come out the day after tomorrow. It was supposed to come out Thanksgiving week, the day before Thanksgiving, the same day as Moana 2. When I don't remember if Wicked ever had that date to itself. I know Disney did a lot of switching around of things, and when we get to Moana 2 next Monday, we'll talk about specifically why Moana ended up in that spot and why Moana 2 ended up on this calendar at all.
Because The Rock's ego is too big to allow anything he does to go straight to streaming.
It's certainly part of it. But the point of it is that originally Gladiator had the last Friday, and then Wicked 2 was going to come out Thanksgiving week, and we would have done it next Monday. They moved it back a week, and I said, well, I'm committed to doing Gladiator now. And for good or bad, for better or for worse, I think Ridley Scott's Gladiator deserved attention and conversation. We always do whatever the November Disney movie is. It doesn't matter what it is. If we didn't do any animation at all, we always talked about the Disney stuff and Pixar. Mostly because of the popularity of it, but also because it's always generated good conversation, and we were, to one degree or another, fans of the company. So Moana 2, when it got announced, was always going to have its spot. I almost didn't want to do Wicked this year. I was like, well, it's 2 parts. We might as well wait till next year, but I am a magnanimous dictator, and everybody I talked, there were like 87 people on that review in 2 weeks. Like, everybody wanted to talk about Wicked now. So when you're like, why aren't they talking about Wicked? I had no idea how big it was going to be. I had no idea how well it was going to do. And they kept moving it around to where I was like, this might not even make its date. They might move it again. Who knows? Maybe they'll move it to Christmas Day. That's a popular time to release a musical.
True.
I was like, I'm not committing to this over Ridley Scott's Gladiator or over Moana 2, over Disney's November feature, just to find out I got to move it again. So that's why that's, at least from my point of view, why we're not talking about Wicked. When are we going to talk about Wicked? In 2 weeks. Next Monday.
So I would like to, Mark, I would like to hand in my 2 weeks notice.
Sure. Well, folks, in 2 weeks, we will no longer be doing Damn You Hollywood, and I will be a permanent member of Movies That Don't Suck.
That's mostly serious question, Mark.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember the answer to this question.
Answer is shoes.
Have you and I reviewed a musical that was not a Disney movie on Damn You Hollywood?
Me and you?
On Damn You Hollywood.
Yeah. But just me and you, because Wonka.
Okay, Wonka. That would have been the last one.
I saw Dear Evan Hansen, but I haven't talked about that with anybody.
No, we didn't review that.
Nope. I saw The Color Purple.
We didn't review that.
We weren't doing this when The Greatest Showman came out.
Or if we were, we didn't review it. I can't remember which way that one went.
Yeah.
But one of those two.
We've never done La La Land.
We didn't do La La Land. That's true. Here's the point.
I'm curious.
I was pretty critical of Wonka, much to Mark's chagrin in some respects. And I need y'all to understand, I don't like musicals. I'm not saying they're bad. This is not a quality assessment. This is a personal taste thing. As a general rule, musicals aren't my thing. And that's whether so having to review them puts me behind an 8 ball with the movie right away. And
we're not counting. We're not counting animated, right?
Yeah, because that's part and parcel with the Disney movie.
Then Beauty and the Beast, 2017.
Okay, so still Disney, but okay, fair enough.
We didn't do just kind of. I'm going to read a couple of these because I had ChatGPT list musicals from 2014, which is about when we started this, to Wicked. Yeah. Nothing in 2014. Nothing in 2015. We're not counting animated musicals. So the first one we did is 2017's Beauty and the Beast. Mm-hmm. We didn't do A Star Is Born. We didn't do Mary Poppins Returns. We didn't do Bohemian Rhapsody. Didn't do Rocket Man, but we did do Aladdin. I saw Cats. You're welcome. We did not talk about it.
I'm sorry.
We reviewed In the Heights. You weren't there. I reviewed Tick, Tick, Boom with one of Melissa's friends, who's a musical theater person. We did not talk about it. Alexis and I reviewed West Side Story. You and I did not talk about it.
What a terrible decision that was.
We reviewed Elvis, if you're counting that.
I wouldn't call that a musical, but okay.
So the answer is still Wonka, by the way.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a long way to go to make the following statement. As a general rule, you good members of our audience have never had to listen to me review a musical as a musical production. This is going to get ugly. I'm just warning you right now. This is going to be ugly, and
plus or minus your antipathy for Barbie.
Just in general.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen it, so.
But you had an intense, irrational hatred for Barbie well before we talked about it. And okay. and if you'll allow me, as the debut Hollywood historian, because again I did go back and rewatch these multiple times, I actually enjoyed our Oscar show this past year. But I saved Barbie for dead last, and I didn't remark on Barbie on that show because I'd already had a conversation with Ronnie about it. I'd already talked about it on Movies That Don't Suck. I had made my thoughts on it pretty clear. It was kind of your moment, and I was like, the floor is yours. I'm not arguing with you. Say what you want to say. And you stood up, you undid your collar, you banged your shoe on the table, and screamed about Barbie for a good 5 minutes. So again, I ask you, what country are you from? Are you from Singapore or China? I'm sorry. I just saw the TikTok thing. What plus or minus your antipathy versus Barbie? What is your negative feelings for Wicked?
My negativity for Barbie generally stemmed from sort of the ethos behind and the creative vision behind Barbie as a property, right?
Okay,
like the vision that they had. Okay. I promise I'm going somewhere. I'm not going to yell about Barbie.
Okay.
But my antipathy for that was I thought it came from a very angry place.
Okay.
I thought it was very preachy.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the only thing anyone remembers from that movie now, a year or so out, is Ryan Gosling is the height of hilarity to me.
America Ferrera's speech. Let's not be unfair.
I'm not being unfair. Ask anyone.
People remember both things.
No, they remember I'm just Ken.
Move on.
My antipathy for Wicked is not coming from a similar place of combativeness with the philosophy behind everything that's gone into it.
Okay.
My dislike for Wicked stems from, one, it's overlong. I haven't seen it. I know how long it is. It's too long. Stop that. Two, I don't like musicals. Straight up. There's very few of there's a few musicals that will break that trend, but on balance, does Robert enjoy musical theater or musical film? No, he does not.
Senator, I have a question.
Yes.
You didn't use your buy for this year.
I did not.
Frankly, the fact that we didn't do Barbie was you using a buy from the original year it was supposed to come out, if I recall.
I held on to that one for a long time.
You had a buy that you cashed in.
I Warren Beatty'd that thing. I kept the rights to that get out of jail free card. That was grandfathered for 8 years.
So the question remains, Senator. Answer the question. I will treat you hostilely. What was the reason you opted to stay on the review for Wicked, especially when you knew I wasn't going to be left hanging out to dry? There's 87 fucking people on that review.
Contrasting this with Barbie, because this is as a point of comparison.
Sure. Okay, in case anyone's watching, because now we have an audience, we are going to get to Gladiator, I promise. But
we will. It's just,
this whole conversation is, why aren't we talking about Wicked?
Yeah.
This is why.
So, not only did I not want to see Barbie in general, I see a lot of movies I don't want to see for the sake of the podcast.
Sure.
I wouldn't have had anything to add to a discussion about Barbie, is my thought about it.
Yeah, nothing. No, I agree. Nothing constructive.
So, if I don't want to, and I don't think anything good is going to come out of it, or anything useful is going to come out of the experience, why do it?
It's fair.
So that's why. Wicked, I almost have to come on and put on blast, not because it's bad. I don't know whether or not the movie is good or bad. I loathe the ripple effect that stupid book caused. I hate it.
I don't understand what you mean by that. Books are printed and bought and read. People love them. They turn into movies or television shows. What ripple effect?
What did Wicked do, Mark?
I know that was a direct question, but let's treat it as rhetorical and you just tell me.
Wicked started the let's re-examine classic villains as misunderstood, put upon heroes.
Do you really think that was solely Wicked, though, or do you think that was sort of a cultural trend of elevating victims?
I'm not saying we wouldn't have gotten there anyway.
Okay.
But like over the long course of history, would we have arrived at the...
I was going to say Wicked started a forest fire where it would have been a slow burn as opposed to a California redwood forest being burnt to the crisp.
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone started a forest fire. Well, there was going to be a forest fire there anyway eventually, right? Lightning strike, something.
Right.
Okay.
This one they sent in a group of flamethrowers.
Something like that. And Wicked is the reason that we have Maleficent. Wicked is the reason for Cruella.
Yep.
Wicked is the reason that Scar is going to be cast as somewhat sympathetic in the Mufasa movie.
Mm-hmm.
All of this crap, I lay at the feet of that work.
So it's Gregory Maguire's fault.
And I hate that trend. I hate, not because I think it's not because I think it is some horrible thing to potentially re-examine or subvert classics. Like, okay, you should be allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I hate how lazy it's become, and I hate that it's become the norm.
You know, it's funny how much this conversation, because now really we're sort of transitioned away from just talking about why we aren't talking about Wicked, but we're sort of talking about how we treat villains and heroes in modern fiction. And boy, does that tie into the movie we're actually going to talk about at some point today.
Yes, it does. And so the point being, like, why did I not bow out of Wicked? Because with respect to everyone who's going to be on it, I'm happy you're all there. I look forward to hearing from you. No shade, no sarcasm. Genuinely look forward to hearing from you and doing the podcast. Where I would have nothing to add to a discussion around Barbie, there is a lot to be said about the influence of Wicked, good, bad, and otherwise. And if the only people speaking are, I say this with respect, nothing but fans of the property, then it goes unexamined. And
let me interject this. I don't disagree that a lot of the blame for what you're talking about in terms of making villains sympathetic, treating morality with relativism, I certainly think it's a bad thing. And I certainly think Gregory Maguire's truly excellent novel, very entertaining book, Wicked.
You, my friend, have you read it?
Yes, dick. Or I wouldn't have said that. I actually read Wicked when it came out.
First of all, you might have just said that as a bit of sarcasm if you hadn't read it, just to
pinch your nipple. No, I assure you, my friend, I have read Wicked. Before it was a musical, by the way.
Plot holes and all, huh?
Yes.
It's almost as bad. It's not quite like it's. I consider the writing aspect of that slightly above 50 Shades of Grey, but you can group them together.
Here's the thing: there has been for the last 20-odd years a trend in modern culture for people to not want to take responsibility for their behavior?
Only the last 20 years. No, this isn't something that goes back to the war in heaven, but sorry, that's a theological point on my end.
Well, no. For it to have been acceptable, and then for the intelligentsia of this country to prop it up with their logic and reason and pseudo philosophy. There has been for a very long time now this lurching towards moral moral relativism, irresponsibility, and any number of things you and I have talked about and said this is not good for the culture.
It's not good for anyone. Moral relativism is a cancer that leads you to view the world as nothing but power.
Right.
Moral relativism means, can I get away with it? That's all it means.
So it's a chicken or the egg routine. This is the last thing I'm going to say before we move on. It's a chicken or the egg thing, because you're saying we might not have been going that way as fast or as hard had it not been for Wicked. And I'm going to sit there and tell you that man wrote to an audience that was already there. The only difference between then and now is they didn't have the internet to blow it up and make it as visible as it is, but it was there. And for it to have been as popular as it was. Look, I enjoyed it as a piece of fiction and as a psychological experiment in what was this villainous person's point of view. What, Elphaba, she's the Wicked Witch of the West. What was her reasoning? What was her story? It was an interesting idea, at the very least. And I was entertained by the book. I didn't use it as my Bible, as some people seem to be doing. Of going like, look, see? This is all fine. He fed a beast that was already there and already hungry.
Well,
we're reflecting back on it now because those people and that sort of thing is everywhere and you can't escape it because we're all on the fucking internet. I'm not blaming the internet, but anyone who's like takeaway from this is, are you blaming the internet for this? No. But I mean, it's like when my parents said the very same thing, more or less, and when it's the TV's fault. The more that we make things visible and connect to each other, the worse, the more blown up, the more closely we can see collective bad behavior. And so again, I say, if I'm in the position of defending Maguire from the prosecution of you caused the moral relativism and decay of American culture and behavior, I'm gonna go, no, we were already there. He just gave people the food they were hungry for. The defense wasn't.
I am not going to say that wasn't the trend prior to Wicked. Wicked did not start a trend. You're correct that it capitalized on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, hang on. He wrote a book that was really popular. What made this thing into a cultural phenomenon was the musical. And while I think incidentally people keyed into the theme and the moral behind the story, because people like musicals and
so once again we've arrived at just Broadway was a mistake.
Oh, my dad's gonna be mad at you.
I don't care.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to move this on?
Yeah, but
24 minutes into the podcast.
We should move on. Because yeah, so tune in 2 weeks for our discussion of Wicked, where I will express how musical theaters are the death of human consciousness and all things good in the world. For tonight, however, we're talking about Ridley Scott pissing all over everything.
There's a part of me now that wants to do an on trial of the musical Mean Girls with you just to torture you. Because I don't have a sadist bone in my body at all.
You don't have the authority or power over me to compel me to do that.
Gladiator II is a 2024. Is a 2024 epic historical action film directed and produced by old man Ridley Scott that serves as a sequel to Gladiator 2000, which we did an on trial for last week. What I did not have to force Robert into. Written by David Scarpa from a story he wrote with Peter Craig, the film was produced by Scott Free Productions. Get it? Get it? Ridley Scott? Scott Free? Do you get it? Do you get it?
Hang on. That started as Tony Scott's production company more than Ridley's. So.
And distributed by Paramount Pictures. It stars Paul
Barely
Mescal,
a studio.
Pedro Pascal, Joseph Quinn, Fred Hechinger, Lior Raz, Derek Jacobi, Connie Nielsen reprising her role from the first film, and Denzel Washington, who picked up his penis from Training Day and brought it to Gladiator II and smashed it into everything that he could. Jacobi and Nielsen.
Well, look, man, if you've got that much equipment to swing around and you're Denzel Washington, you may as well.
You're going to swing it. Jacobi and Nielsen reprised their roles from the first film, with Mescal replacing Spencer Treat Clark. Mescal portrays Lucius, whose home is invaded by the Roman army led by General, how do you pronounce that? Acacius?
Acacius.
He seeks revenge against Acacius and fights as a gladiator for Macrinus, a former slave who plans to overthrow the Emperor Geta and Caracalla. All right, what happens in this movie, Robert?
My brain tries to chew its way out of the top of my skull to escape, is what happens throughout the course of this movie. As mentioned, we open with like an oil painting rendition of the first movie, because everyone remembers the first movie, and the first movie was really good, right? Then we cut ahead to good old Paul Mescal as he runs grain through his hands, because this was shadow directed by Zack Snyder. Not the last time I'm going to make that joke. And he's living in North Africa, and he's got a wife, and he's happy, and we're not supposed to know at the outset this is Lucius from the kid from the first movie, but it was plastered all over the advertising, which makes all of the entire first act of this movie being a, wait a minute, who is this guy? A waste of everyone's time. Anyway, they try to defend their city from the encroaching Romans, led by Pedro Pascal and little baby Yoda on his shoulder. Sorry, wrong thing with Pedro Pascal. He's got the gray in his temples because he's Mr. Fantastic. Nope, sorry, wrong other thing that Pedro Pascal is miscast in.
Bad, Robert.
I don't like Pedro Pascal. Sorry.
Okay.
Back on track. The Romans win because it's what the Romans do. And in the course of the battle, Lucius's wife is shot and killed, and everything goes monochrome because, again, we're in Zack Snyder territory, and he sees her cross the river Styx. And she says, "I'll be waiting for you." And then he wakes up in the ocean, and he is dragged off to slavery. While Acacius goes back to Rome in glory, but Acacius, you see, has become the man disillusioned by the endless wars of the Roman Empire and the twin emperors who are basically Caligula split in two. Much like Lucius and Acacius are the character of Maximus split into two different parts. That's what we did with the historical figure of Caligula and just threw him up there as these two actors. I feel so bad for everyone involved in this. Anyway. The slaves are taken to a fighting pit where we meet Denzel Washington, who is playing Denzel Washington, which is still very good to watch. And they fight the worst-looking CGI baboons in human history. And yes, I'm including all the apes from Congo in that descriptor.
Oh, what you said.
I will die on that hill, and I will not be alone.
I'm going to have... Jonas has been really into like let's watch old movies at least one a day. I might now have to show him Congo just so I can be reminded of how bad it is versus the baboon scene in this movie.
You can. I can't stop you.
I mean, we watched Dick Tracy today, and he looked at me and he was like, "Isn't this just Batman, but the guy's wearing a yellow trench coat?" I'm like, yes, good job.
Sort of, but not really. But see our discussion last week of Warren Beatty's war with the studio over how that movie came about.
Keep going.
So Denzel Washington watches this guy kill a baboon with a chain and goes, "You know what? I'll buy him because slave." So he buys him and he starts training him up as a gladiator, and he gets into a fist fight. You're going to have to permit me one minor. I swear I will be straight as an arrow after this. You have to permit me one minor complaint.
I'll allow it.
He gets into a fist fight with a guy wearing studded brass gauntlets over his fists. These two proceed to punch each other in the face a lot. And all that comes out of this is a couple of bruises. Mark, I've watched enough bare knuckle fighting to know what happens when you punch someone in the face with a bare fist. To say nothing of with the gauntlets and with the spiked gauntlets presented.
Yeah, I've also seen people get hit in the face with bare knuckles. That's not, trust me, you get more than a bruise.
Their
Sorry,
faces should have been
brass knuckles.
hamburger.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, if you get punched reasonably hard with brass knuckles in the face, you lose teeth, possibly consciousness, possibly your life if you get hit in the right place.
But for the sake of cinema, a few fetching bruises.
Oh, are they fetching?
They're supposed to be, whether or not they actually... That was the brief to the makeup department. Give them rugged, fetching battle wounds.
I hope they use the word fetching.
It's Ridley Scott. Of course that word was used.
All right. Keep going.
Anyway. So Denzel Washington is able to kind of talk with Lucius and talks him into you're going to be my gladiator. I'll take you to the Roman Colosseum. And what can I do to make you, to get a little bit more of your loyalty? And he goes, well, I'd really like to kill the Roman army. And he goes, there's a lot of them. Be realistic. I want the commander of the Roman army that killed my wife and ruined my life. And he goes, that I can do. So they go to Rome, and while we are introduced to Acacius again, and he is weary of the bloodthirst and the ineptitude and the sadism and the mustache twirly of the two Roman emperors. And he is now married to Lucius's mother, Connie Nielsen from the first movie. And they're plotting a coup. Mark, this is all looking very familiar. I spent this whole movie doing as old man Biff from Back to the Future 2, watching that hoverboard crash scene, going, I'm very familiar about all this.
And then you ended up in a truck full of manure.
Yeah, it was this movie, and it was a hard way to get out of it. So they're planning a coup, because of course they are. And Denzel Washington shows up, and he starts playing politics, and he wins wagers with a member of the Senate who has got his ear to the ground, and this is his font of information. And Lucius wins a couple of gladiatorial fights, because there must be gladiatoring in Gladiator, as your son would probably insist upon.
That was the one positive about this movie, is there was a lot of gladiating to be done.
Allegedly. Yeah, there was. So at this point, Connie Nielsen sees her son and recognizes him also because he quoted poetry at the Roman emperors. And she kind of hears this secondhand and remembers that I don't know why you would adorn a child's room with a poem by Virgil, but okay. And then he does the thing that Maximus used to.
I mean, when Jonas was a baby, we had the lyrics to Orgasmatron on his wall.
I can't tell if you're joking.
You'll never know.
No, I assume you're joking, but I'm not sure. He also does the thing that Maximus does, because remember that movie, Mark? It was a good movie. He picked up the dirt and he rubbed it between his hands. It was a thing.
Uh-huh.
And now Lucius does it, and that's it's a thing because, behavior is genetic, right? So a lot of this goes on, and she tries to reconcile with her son, but he's still pissed at her for sending him away. After the end of Commodus and Maximus's death, she sent him away because now you're the only heir to the Roman throne, and people will try to kill you. Which is not an unfair assumption, all things considered. And he's still bitter about that because he wound up hell and gone from anywhere. He was in, as we would say, BFE. And now he's back, and he's again very bitter, and he's very angry. And the crux of this winds up being she convinces Pedro Pascal to try and spring Lucius from Gladiator prison before they actually execute the coup. And through his own machinations and intelligence, Denzel Washington has figured all of this out. He tips off the emperors about what's about to happen. So Pedro Pascal winds up captured, thrown into the arena where he kills a few extras, and then fights with Lucius, and Lucius is about to kill him, but Pedro Pascal stops and says, "I know who you are, and I knew your father. I served with him." I totally didn't get recast between movies, but it's been 20 years, so we'll give him a mulligan on that one. And I was under his direct command, and I absolutely would have died for him, and I will happily die for you, pointless slave. And I love your mother. And he died. Then they shoot him full of arrows like a porcupine.
Right. And Harrison Ford walks by the frame and says, "Just let me die," as all men do. All modern men wish to die, ladies and gentlemen. That is the message we have received from Hollywood. Robert and I were just talking about that before the podcast starts. By the end of this podcast, we will be dead. We wish to be dead. Death is the only freedom a man truly has in the year of our Lord 2024.
And not even that most of the time. So he's dead, and in a sane movie, this would be the ending. This is not a sane movie. So now, Lucius goes back to the Gladiator jail, and the twins are further manipulated by Denzel Washington, because really it was him, Mark. He was the author of all your pain. They actually do that here, and it made me want to throw something.
I haven't done it in a while since you fucking did that.
It is.
It was all me, James. It's always been me, the author of all your pain.
Yeah, that's Denzel Washington in this.
It's been a while.
So he manipulates the emperors into being opposed to each other, and he helps one of them kill the other. And then that emperor, because we're referencing real history, you see Caligula famously appointed his horse as first consul to the Senate.
Yep.
Now, historically, modern history has us look at that and go, he was crazy, and he kind of was traumatized and a little bit unbalanced. There's another reading of that I think also bears validity, that he was making fun of the Senate, like, even my horse can do what you idiots do.
It's just probably closer to the truth.
Almost certainly, but everyone would rather pretend that Caligula was nothing but a madman. He was the Joker.
I can't remember which iteration of the George W. Bush administration it was, but he got a Supreme Court pick. And I think before he landed on what was considered a relatively sane pick, he picked the woman that ran the local lotto. And I remember Ann Coulter's reaction to that was, "We voted you in to do exactly what you're doing, but not the way you're doing it. You're not supposed to appoint the cleaning lady to the Supreme Court." She was roundly rejected. But it was kind of that thing where you treat, in that particular instance, George Bush was treating a Supreme Court seat as a reward for loyalty. Whatever it was she did for George Bush, it was like, all right, well, I'll just throw you a Supreme Court seat, and not treating it with the reverence that it deserves, where you could still get somebody politically minded in that seat without having to do that. But it was a very clear sign of his, just wanting to pay off a debt. So that's why I think, like, the pointing of the horse to Senate was more of, I'm doing this as political theater.
Yeah, that's much closer to the truth of Caligula than he's a crazy person who just wanted to set the world on fire. But
did you ever see the Penthouse movie of Caligula?
No.
It's good. I like it. Peter O'Toole, fantastic.
I'm probably due to actually watch that, but Caligula's there's a reason he's maligned in history, but he is overly maligned in history when you actually look at the record. Anyway, so this emperor appoints his pet monkey as first consul. Not joking.
Monkey wearing a dress, by the way. Monkey wearing a dress.
And then in a more serious move, he says second consul will be Denzel Washington, who has now achieved more power. And Denzel pulls out the head of the one emperor and says, the emperor who's still with us is riddled with syphilis. And I have his ear, and I can kind of control some things if you'll give me control of the army. I can manage this situation so we don't deteriorate into nothing but bloodshed. There's also unrest in the streets, you see, because after the death of Acacius, who was a hero to the people, Lucius yelled loud enough to be heard across the entire Colosseum, "Is this how Rome treats her heroes? And if they'll do this to the Roman hero, what will they do to you, the common folk?" And the common folk who could afford seats in the Colosseum go, "Hey, he's right."
I couldn't hear Dave Chappelle in a basketball arena in New Orleans, but these motherfuckers could hear this guy yell from the sandy floors of the Roman Colosseum all the way to the back row, enough to, warrant an uprising.
So the point being, there's fiery but mostly peaceful protests going on as this discussion amongst the Roman Senate is taking place. And the end result of this becomes, okay, so we're going to kill Connie Nielsen. She's going to go out into the Colosseum. She'll be chained to a pole, as will all of her retinue and co-conspirators, and the Praetorian Guard will come out and kill them. But she'll have one defender, and if he can survive, then he'll get his freedom, and it will be Lucius. And this whole time, Lucius has now had a change of heart. You see, he's gone from just being an angry young man to now that he doesn't have to share the actual character of Maximus with Pedro Pascal's character. He gets all of it. And he goes, now I must defend Rome. We must rebuild the ideal of Rome. Never mind that.
My mother. This is important because 2 seconds ago, he didn't care much for his mother or at all. And now he loves his mother dearly.
And he sends one of his, the doctor for the gladiators. He sends them with a ring and a message that the last prince of Rome is summoning the army that was there for the coup to complete the coup. And the guy goes, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm only risking horrible torture and death, but I'll do this. So he heads off, but he leaves the keys behind so the gladiators can stage their uprising. So they start a riot in the Colosseum. The riot breaks out. It extends. Denzel Washington murders the remaining emperor because at this point, why not? And then, because he now has, you see, now that the cartoony villains have gone, Mark, they're dead. There must still be a cartoony villain, so he cartoonishly, mustache twirly, shoots Connie Nielsen with an arrow in the chest. She dies exactly the same way this poor schmuck's wife died, in his arms with an arrow sticking out of her chest. And then he runs away, and Mescal chases him through the streets of Rome, to the outskirts of Rome, where the two armies are now facing off, and these two idiots get into a fist fight for the soul of Rome. When even the Joker knows your plan is stupid. So 70-year-old Denzel Washington squares off with a physically primed gladiator in a sword fight and is competitive. And in fact, Lucius is only saved because he has donned the armor of Maximus. Because remember the first movie, Mark? The first movie was a good movie. And this is the only piece of functioning armor in the entire world in which this movie operates. Rest of the armor? Nah. This armor will stop.
It's Stormtrooper armor, specifically from Family Guy.
Why do we wear this?
Right.
And ultimately, Lucius wins the fight. He delivers a speech.
I was so hoping the crocodile from X was going to show up and just bite him. And Pedro Pascal, or what do you call it? The actor playing Lucius just goes, "See you in the next movie." Like, I'm going. He looks back and goes, "I'm doing Crawl too." Rawr. He roars and crawls away.
And then in our final bit of, hey, do you remember the first movie, Mark? The first movie was a good movie. Paul Mescal goes to the Colosseum again and picks up some of the dirt and he rubs it between his fingers and he goes, "Speak to me, Father." And then he has a vision of Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. So he's walking through a field of wheat, just touching the grass as he goes along. Because remember when Russell Crowe did that in the first movie? The first movie was a good movie, Mark. Do you remember that?
Okay.
I say that only because that is so obviously plastic. There are whole sequences of this movie that is a flashback from the first movie.
It's not all bad. Here's what's good. Here's what I know.
It's kind of all bad.
Stop. The opening siege of whatever.
Numibia?
Yeah. It's good. It's a great way to open up the movie, get you, take you back to this world. introduce you to the characters. The first one began with a war sequence. This one, because it takes place in a different setting, it's lit differently. It's everything about it. We have Roman ships sieging this, for lack of a better phrase, castle. It's good. So the effects on that scene looked good. The action sequences in that bit looked good.
Hey, you know what? I don't think you're wrong, but remember how we talked about with Napoleon that we thought Ridley Scott just wanted to shoot cannons?
Yeah.
I think he just wanted to shoot this scene.
Yeah.
And then the rest of this is kind of a
I kind of would have
whatever.
been okay with if the movie had been over after this scene. Finn. That's what's good about that. Denzel Washington's performance is dynamic.
Yeah,
he never, Denzel Washington's like, I'm not doing British. None of us are speaking Latin. I'm not doing an accent. I'm just going to be Denzel Washington from Training Day, and
his accent. Hang on, he doesn't have that heavy of like a Brooklyn accent.
Well, no,
for this, but
the whole world to you is Brooklyn. If it's, I swear to God, it wasn't doing Brooklyn Training Day either. So here's the thing. Denzel Washington is one hair's breadth away from like a Mel Brooks style. He's speaking jive in a world that doesn't speak jive. Like, it's not that bad, but it's close.
You're not quite a hair's breadth away, but it wouldn't shock me if the first take of everything he did to get it out of his system, that's what he did.
Yeah. And then
he comes out and he does the jive and everyone has a good time with it. And then, okay, now seriously, Denzel, let's do the real thing. And he does the real thing.
It's like his inspiration for the way he did line deliveries was Gregory Hines from History of the World Part 1.
A little bit.
Or the two jive guys from Airplane. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but truth to help you God? Ain't no thing. All right, Denzel, you good now? Can we do the movie? Sure. And then he just did himself, in a little toned down, but not too much. He's great. Like, he's fun to listen to. His line deliveries have almost a musical presentation to them, to where I enjoyed listening to Denzel talk and do dialogue. I always was less interested in what he was saying and just liked the tone of his voice. So that's good. Everyone except for Pedro Pascal and what's his name, Paul Mescal are serviceable. Yeah. Connie Nielsen's fine. I wish I hadn't listened to the Drinkers review of the movie first, because I kind of got biased going in, and then I spent the entire time going, I don't think the Drinker had this one right in this particular criticism. He's talking about the cruelty of the emperors, and the emperors are eccentric. The emperors are somewhat foppish, one more so than the other, but I didn't see them as cruel. At about the time that they're reacting harshly to things, their world is unraveling. Okay? They being of the aristocracy and probably not totally mentally sound in that generations of incest of English royalty way, they don't got the coping skills. So yeah, as things are starting to unravel around them and things are not going their way, they seem to be losing control of the situation. They're reacting accordingly. I actually quite enjoyed their performance.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm not going to completely agree. I don't think the Drinker's characterization of them in his summation was
cruel before you can.
Yeah, that's implied here, but poorly. I couldn't enjoy these characters at all.
Okay. Please keep in mind that is a personal thing, and I'm not necessarily saying you should have enjoyed them. I'm saying the remark the Drinker made about them was that they come across as unnecessarily cruel. And I think the Drinker, I think the Drinker, while a good film critic, not the best armchair psychologist, what I saw tracked. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, here's my problem with them.
Okay.
They're not characters.
Okay.
These are caricatures.
That was implied.
Their mustache dude, one of these idiots, somebody wrote the line that after Pedro Pascal goes up to them and says, "I would like a reprieve from war, please. I'd like to spend time with my wife. You know, I've conquered another land for the glory of Rome and the glory of the emperors."
And one of the emperors picks up the script from the first Gladiator and says, "We're not allowed to do that, sir."
Yeah, well, and he implies to them, like, you know, Rome's kind of falling apart. You do need to feed your people. And somebody wrote, one of these emperors says, "Let them eat war."
Yes, the drinker zeroed in on that line too. It didn't make any sense. He said it didn't make sense. Yes, it's a stupid line.
It's an incredibly stupid line.
Here's the thing.
Hang on, let me.
It's somebody's reading of "Let them eat cake" and not knowing the context of that line appropriately. I really wish the American school system hadn't fallen apart over the last 20 to 30 years, because we don't know what anything means. And "let them eat and "let them eat cake" meant something very specific, and it has been utterly misunderstood and misused. But that's what they were going for with "let them eat war."
I understand the attempted reference.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care that understanding it makes it worse.
Yeah. Yes. If you're smart and paid attention in school, that line hurts you. If you have no fucking idea and you're just like, "Let them eat war," and you're like, it'll make no sense. It hurts less.
But like, the writing of those characters doesn't get any better than that.
Okay. They didn't bother me as much. Their behavior was in line with, I think, what was happening in the movie, because it's about the only thing that happens in line with this movie in terms of what's happening. So what did I like? I thought the Emperors were fine. Denzel's performance was fine. The action sequences were really, really good. The Gladiator fighting in and of itself seemed fine. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, the fighting, it wasn't, there's no style to it. But
no.
You know, as far as you just like, you know, good, it's kind of like, you know, if you watch really good sports combat fighting, and you can see the artistry in the martial arts versus the kind of garbage that I root for in the garbage can, like bare knuckle fighting. And you're just like, this is trash, but it's entertaining trash. I am entertained. Oh, look, the bloodshed. This movie kind of goes for the latter rather than the former. Here's what Go ahead.
It goes for the latter, but without knowing why it should go for the latter is kind of my bigger gripe with the style behind that. But
right. So here's the point that Robert will start agreeing with me, because anytime I have anything good to say, Robert's like, no. Okay, finally we're at the point of the review where I'm going to say what's terrible. Ugh, this movie. First of all, your two leads couldn't have any less likability or charisma.
You ain't wrong.
Paul Pascal, it's hard to not compare this to the original Gladiator.
You have to. This movie, and not just when I say this movie invites it, it's not just because it's a sequel. You've now like sort of retroactively made Lucius the son of Maximus, which was kind of implied in the first one, but never a major plot point. So you do that, and then you have the majority of the dialogue being thrown at Lucius being, "But think of your father, your sainted father, who died in the arena after killing the Roman emperor."
I'm not going to go through the entire on trial. We talked about this last Thursday. I don't need to go into all of it, but I do need to bring this up. That's a story about a guy doing his duty and then being betrayed by those he serves, having his entire family killed, and never once relishing the death he's in command of. And then kind of being pushed in that direction and fighting it the whole way, being disgusted by it the whole way, and then kind of seeing this straight line that he's got for the guy that brought him all this pain. He's got, when he sees that the way forward is the way to Commodus and killing Commodus, you're with him the whole way. You as an audience member feel his pain, his reticence to kill, his anguish at being betrayed and having his family killed, and his desire for revenge once he gets past the revulsion of being a gladiator. There's a sympathy about Maximus that enraptures the audience, brings us with him, and we go towards the journey, and it is very satisfying when he kills Commodus and dies in the end. And I go, oh, this man who we loved so much in this movie is gone. This movie is absent all of that. You want to talk about trends in Hollywood. I'm more angry, like you talked about when we first started, we were talking about Wicked and more relativism and all that. And yes, it's all terrible. But if there's something that aggravates me personally more than that, it's I did it all for my woman, the nookie. So give me that cookie and shove it up your yeah.
Okay. Wow. Did not expect a
Limp Biscuit reference.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
that's a rarely used spot on the bingo card.
The idea that first of all, there are no new ideas left in Hollywood, and we keep using the same tropes. And this idea that all men are motivated by true love. That's it. That's all they care about. Nothing else. His wife died. And here's the thing. The difference between his wife, Paul Pascal's wife, Lucius's wife, and Maximus's family is Maximus's family was on the farm.
Yeah.
They died to tie up a loose end. They were like,
Yep.
Nobody lives through this. We want to wipe this under the rug and pretend like it never happened.
Pure tragedy.
Yeah. They had no reason to die. And as a matter of fact, Maximus even says, fine, kill me. Who gives a fuck? But spare my family. They did nothing. They are loyal citizens of Rome. They're fucking farmers in, way off in the wheat fields of Rebel Moon. They donned her with battle armor and said, yeah, fight. And so she does. And you know what happens when you fight? You take the risk of dying. And so she did. She died a hero's death, defending her country. The fuck am I supposed to feel bad about here? Why is he so mad? Like, they took up arms, lost, it happens. And like, I'm not begrudging him his feelings to lose his wife in battle, but it's not the same and it's being treated the same.
Yeah.
That's a problem for me. That is a big problem. And more to the point, again, when Maximus wants to kill Commodus, it's because Commodus took everything from him. Burnt his farm, killed his family, made him a traitor, ruined his name, and then tried to kill him. Maximus is owed his revenge. This asshole, whose wife died in glorious battle, is written with the same level of anger and desire for revenge, and they're not the same. They're just not.
And had she died in some kind of even in battle, you can die nefariously.
Sure.
If she had surrendered and then been killed after they've lost.
Right.
Then we're dealing with something
taken prisoner,
different.
And they were like, "This is for defying us." Yeah, and they slit her throat. All right, now I'm with you.
Yeah, there's ways to have gotten that point across, but
she takes a fucking arrow to the chest.
She dies in fair combat.
Armor.
Yeah, again, and fair combat. There was nothing nefarious about this at all. And yeah, you're right. You're completely right.
Pedro Pascal looks like he would rather be in any other thing than Gladiator II.
He signed on to be in Gladiator II to get away from Star Wars, and everything that man does right now, he just looks miserable.
Yeah, he has as much energy as Robert does talking about Barbie, possibly less. There is no energy to his performance in this. Even in the battle scenes, Maximus is carrying the weight of this years-long campaign into Europe. And he's like, ugh, I just want this to be over, but we are here to do a duty, and so my energy is in this duty, and I will do the duty. And Pedro Pascal's like, all right, we're here. Kill. And we're done now. That's it. That's the energy he brought to that scene. That's the energy he brings to this entire fucking movie. His entire performance is one long sigh of derision. And derision might be giving him too much energy. It's awful. It's like I was bored watching him, and the only time I got invested in the movie in terms of performance is when Denzel Washington was on screen. And the two emperors, quite frankly, they were fun to watch. I hated every scene with Pedro Pascal. He bored me to tears.
Of the two emperors, the guy who plays Eddie in Stranger Things does a slightly better job. but I couldn't even get invested in anything they were doing because I watched them and like, oh, it's Boris and Natasha. Like that's what happened. These cartoon characters walk on screen, and suddenly I can't care
Right.
because you're jokes.
The plot
Everything
of
about
this
you is a
makes
joke.
no fucking sense. And here's the thing. Commodus, by contrast, is an excellent villain.
Oh yes.
Commodus is overcome with self-doubt. Like he's a lot of what's driving him to do what he's doing is all he wants is his father to love him, and his father's like, "You're terrible, no." And I'm hoping with the actions that I'm taking, this tough love that I'm giving, you'll be a better man because the man you are now stinks. And Commodus has kind of hit the end of his fucking rope with his dad. I meant to say this on the on trial, but the relationship between Marcus Aurelius and Commodus is awesome. It's Marcus Aurelius going, "I have failed you as a father. I have coddled you. I have not given you boundaries. I have not taught you respect. I've done none of the things I should have taught you as a man and as a father. And I have failed you and you have become a terrible human being. Certainly not one fit to lead Rome." And Commodus is like, "The fuck am I supposed to do with that?" Like, I'm in his 30s when this is going on? Maybe younger because it's Rome. But my point is, like, he's a full-grown adult. He's like, "It's a little late now, asshole." And Marcus is like, maybe you can figure it out, go to therapy, I don't know. And Commodus is like, "How about I just fucking kill you and kill Maximus and everybody else that gets in my way because I've about had it." Good. We are with you, Commodus. We know why you're doing what you're doing. You're a great character. And then you have Denzel Washington, who first I'm just buying slaves and I'm doing gladiator stuff. And you know what you never hear him talk about through most of the movie? His desire to see Rome fall. It comes up at the end when the plot says it's time to talk about it.
Yeah.
That's a problem. If the story you're telling is this is all one big plot for Denzel Washington to single-handedly bring down the Roman Empire, which as far as stupid plots go, I would be fine with if from the time we meet Denzel Washington to the time he dies in the crick, Denzel Washington is talking about how awful Rome is, what a blight on humanity it is, and how he's going to do everything possible to see it fall. The line in the trailer, "You shall be my instrument," tells you, the person watching that trailer, that's what this movie is going to be about, and it's not about that. It doesn't become about that until the third act, and by then it's too late. That's shit movie writing.
Denzel's character, the first 2/3 of this movie, there's a way to do this kind of character right, where they are somewhat ambiguous for the majority of the film. And then at the end, you get revealed their true colors. That can be done on a character level. When that's supposed to tie into the plot, it takes an incredibly skilled hand to make that work writing-wise. Nobody with that level of skill was present for this.
The last thing I'm going to say is you are led to believe that Pedro Pascal is the villain here. It's not. It's Denzel Washington, and the movie suffers for it because you don't really know that Denzel's the villain until the third act. By then, it's too late.
Until the twist. It was him. It was him all along.
It was not an M. Night Shyamalan movie. We don't need this.
He sends out Lucius into to the gladiatorial pit for the last time and goes, "It was me. I'm the author of all your pain." Think they went down to fight? You think the Romans chose Numibia by accident? No. I did that to you because I knew you were he doesn't say that's not a scene, but that's the feeling that you get out of this.
It was me, Lucius. It was me the whole time.
And somewhere in the background, a very tired man from Oklahoma goes, "Oh, son of a bitch."
I am not with our lead. I am with Maximus the entire way through that movie, from opening credits to closing credits. I am with Commodus from the beginning to the end as the villain.
Yeah.
I'm not with anybody in this movie.
Nope.
Lucian's character is, I'm mad you killed my wife because I'm hot for my wife. I'm horny for my wife, as any good husband should be. You should always be horny for your wife.
True.
I don't think I'm saying anything controversial with that.
No, but
not a hot take. Be horny for your wife.
One of those weird things that apparently needs to be said nowadays, but husbands, you should in fact find your wives attractive.
Yeah. So he's horny for his wife, and they kill his wife while she was doing her job. And then he's like, I'm mad now. That's it. That's his whole fucking character. And then we don't even get a satisfying, you killed my wife. He was like, I'm just doing my job. We don't even get that. We get Harrison Ford going, just let me die. Just let me die. Fleabag, why won't you let me die? Now I'm a big red CGI monster, and a 10-year-old child even thinks this is terrible. Ugh. I can't wait till we talk about the Captain America movie.
He's Charles Bronson in Death Wish 9.
Just let me die.
No, it's Bronson. It's Bronson in a hospital bed with a monitor going, boy, I wish I was dead.
Perfect. So we don't even get the satisfaction.
I think that's a Family Guy joke.
We don't even get the satisfaction of Lucian killing Pedro Pascal after we've waited for it for 2 hours. Pedro Pascal is just kind of takes the entire air out of that, because the battle itself, the fight itself up until that point was actually pretty good, and it was one of the few times the guy shows any emotion besides bemusement, which is a major problem I have with his character and his characterization, is that he goes through. Maximus carried the weight of everything I'm doing is wrong and everything that's been done to me is wrong and I don't like it and I don't know what to do about it. Whereas Lucius is just like, well, I guess I'll kill some people. When I'm not killing people, I do a lot of this. Yeah. He's a goof. He just walks around like a big stupid idiot.
They wrote this for Aaron Taylor Johnson, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. He has the mentality of a second string football player.
Third.
I'm just here to hit people. It's fine. I don't even care how much I play. Just put me out there. Let me hit some shit. All right. It's not exactly any given Sunday, but sure. So again, this is the guy you put out front as your lead that we're supposed to buy into, and I could give a shit. I don't care about him. I don't care about his wife. He doesn't make me care. And then in the end, when he fights Denzel Washington in their lightsaber battle out by the creek, which is about what that amounted to, I'm like, your big finale in all of this was have old man Denzel fight this young idiot football player, and it's for the soul, like you put it, for the soul of Rome. And it's like, if you were one of those Roman soldiers, in all reality, you'd have been laughing your ass off.
Oh, yeah.
One of the captains in one of those legions would have been like, we could just take Rome now. It's not like they're going to stop us, these two idiots.
Yeah, it's
so bad.
It's so bad.
So, yeah. Gladiator 2. Utterly unnecessary. It's half good. It's half bad, but it's half good. And it's a complete waste of everyone's time.
It's not half good. I think you're being very generous with that assessment.
Well, I'm giving credit where credit's due.
Okay.
This isn't a pass-fail. Things that were good, and they're worth watching. Look, I think people. Look, I'll tell you this right now. Lily liked it, and Lily is my barometer for the ham and eggers, average Joers, the casuals, dirty, filthy casuals. And that's the thing, is what she keyed into was. It was a little over long, but it was mostly entertaining and performed by some of the cast very well. Your witness.
Okay. Let me touch on a few things that Mark didn't. Because we had our disagreements, we had our agreements about everything you said, and I'll happy to let most of that stand. Here's some stuff we didn't talk about just yet. The CGI in this is mostly bad. I wasn't kidding about those baboons looking just awful. They're just awful. And I can't quite get over it. Okay, the following really bothered me. Because this is one of those things I hate, and I see it all the time in modern movies. If you have someone who is supposed to be an inspiring figure, you need to show them earning loyalty. Because we're doing Gladiator Part 2, let's compare and contrast with Part 1, shall we? It is not hard to understand why Maximus commands loyalty and respect. He is a slave in the gladiator pits, and the way he treats his fellows and the way he helps them is, you can see why they are drawn to him and why they fight and die for him. It's very, very clear, and it's very, very easy to follow. But you do have to devote a few minutes of screen time to that endeavor. In this movie, Lucius is meant to be a similar figure who does nothing to earn the loyalty of people who are going to try to kill.
It is an editorial on how modern Hollywood doesn't understand how men work.
Well, yes, I'm going to extend this just a little bit.
Sure.
Because they can't do female leaders either. There is no understanding of leadership qualities amongst these writers.
Yeah.
Now, this is doubly true of purely masculine situations. These are nothing but men. There's nothing but male gladiators present here. How men work and how men bond and how a leader of men commands respect and earns loyalty is something that these people don't know how to do. They don't know how to write about it. They don't know how to, even though
they don't
you did in the first one.
See the first 20 minutes of our podcast, they don't respect it. And
Yeah.
and there's been an active campaign to extinguish it from the culture. And then the culture fights back, and people wonder why certain people win political elections, but that's a different podcast.
It is, and it's one that you mothballed, which I do kind of.
Oh my God, get over it, sissy pansy.
But again, you can watch the first one, and all that is handled very, very well. Like, you follow it. You see Maximus earning that. Everything about Lucius's quote-unquote leadership in this movie is done off-screen or shouted at you, the audience, by someone else on screen. It's assumed. It's not earned. And that's bad writing. I'm going to bring up a point, the drinker, because I mentioned this in my review, but I'm going to elaborate on it just a little bit. So the drinker mentioned that one of the things they did with this was take the character of Maximus and split him into two. So Lucius gets all of the trauma and the revenge, and Acacius gets all of the duty and the reticence about the structure of Rome. And those are the two sort of components that helped create Maximus as a character in the original. And it turns out when you take those, when you separate those into two different characters, you've taken one really good character and turned it into two very, very subpar characters. Yeah. Is all you've accomplished. Nothing there. I think my other major gripe with this movie is the amount of, hey, remember the first one? That's a good movie. I didn't even use all the material I had thought up when watching this.
Thank you.
You don't understand, people. They walk by a tiger at one point. Remember when tigers were in the fight in the first one? Because the first movie is a good movie. There's so many. There's a bunch of different. I mentioned before. There's several scenes that are literally just, hey, we have the first movie. Let's replay a scene from that. We dragged poor Derek Jacobi out of the basement, gave him 4 lines of dialogue, and then killed him. Like, why? What was the point of that? Because he was in the first movie. Remember the first movie, Mark? The first movie was a good movie.
It's going on a t-shirt.
Increasingly, it's going to be a relevant thing to say about these things. Okay. Here's the other thing that I had to bring up, because this is just lazy. Remember when we talked about the first one, I said one of the great things about the original Gladiator is the soundtrack, because Hans Zimmer is great?
Quick interjection. I told my son today, I said, son, I called him son. And I said...
You zigged when you were supposed to zag there.
I said there were 3 great composers that have written compositions for most of the films over the past 50 years. John Williams, Star Wars, Superman, Indiana Jones,
Jaws.
Hans Zimmer, Gladiator, and and whenever you start to hear the sounds of a psychotic circus being put in a trash can and thrown down a hill, That would be Danny Elfman.
Okay. In fairness to the point, Elfman can be replaced with. There's about three other. There's three or so people that can take that third slot.
Howard Shore.
Howard Shore is one of them. Alan Silvestri,
Mm-hmm.
who at this point is most famous for scoring the Avengers movies.
I mentioned it because I'm sitting there listening to the score of Dick Tracy and going, oh my God, this is the score from Batman. Oh my God, this is the score from every Tim Burton movie. The fuck? Danny Elfman has one trick. One.
Yes.
Again,
yes, he does.
Takes a circus, puts it in a trash can, and rolls it down a hill. Ta-da! Composure. Composition, rather.
Yeah.
Back to Hans Zimmer.
If you want to know how bad this movie is, the only time this movie somewhat approximates gaining emotional resonance is when it shifts from the score for this movie to replaying Hans Zimmer's score from the first one, including our finale when we use the finale song from the original. It's just, again, lazy. You know this isn't working, so what can we do to tell the audience that you're supposed to react a certain way? Hey, remember the music from the first movie? The first movie is a good movie. Lazy.
Something
Lazy
I thought about,
filmmaking.
Actually, I forgot to mention, I really hated the transition in Lucian's character of, you sent me away because Commodus was going to kill me.
Well, not Commodus at that point, but whoever wants the throne.
Yeah, either way, I'm a doomed child. So
Yeah.
They sent me away, and she says to him, because they flash back to this, I will come find you. And then she never did. And he had a whole new life elsewhere. And he says to her several times throughout the movie, the child you sent away died. In its place is the man I am today, and the man I am today has no relationship to you. All right? That's solid. You know, that's every adopted kid ever. And without putting the work and the writing in, he transitions to, I love my mother and I will fight for her. Why? There's something there. It was horrible. I watched that. His wanting to defend Rome and wanting to defend his mother, which I kind of linked together, comes from nowhere, apropos of nothing, and is a sign of weakness in the writing of this movie. And I needed to make sure I said that.
1,000,000%. It is a character turn because the plot demanded it, nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sucks.
Horribly. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And then the fact that we end this with him going like, I'd like to commune with the spirit of my father. And then we flash to him kind of doing what Maximus did as his mind palace thing or right after he died.
I would have had more respect for this movie had an apparition of Maximus appeared before him and said, you must go to the Dagobah system. There you will find you.
There you will find Baby Yoda, who will be really pissed that you killed Pedro Pascal.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
So you went to Star Wars again, and I couldn't help but make the reference.
Sure.
No, this is a bad movie. Not every element is singularly bad, but it's badly written. It's not terribly well directed. Most of the acting is not great. The plot is slipshod and nonsensical. The emotional connection is non-existent. The actual battle sequences are forgettable to passable, but nothing memorable.
If the first one's an editorial on the state of corruption in modern government, and that anyone with any sense isn't allowed anywhere near government, and so just continues to fall over the cliff in a barrel. That's fine. I don't understand what this movie thought it was saying about modern politics, if it was saying anything at all.
Here's what it was saying. Fiery but mostly peaceful protests are, in fact, the way to change things.
A child says that. A child.
Yeah, I think you mean a postgraduate student, but you repeat yourself.
It's like, did Ridley Scott start banging a 19-year-old co-ed, and she started influencing his writing?
Well, he's not writing any of this, so.
But so this guy Joe Governatori has been commenting on our YouTube, and we appreciate him. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
I've
you,
enjoyed
sir.
your comments.
Appreciate it.
I've been interacting with him in the comments. I haven't been putting him on screen, but this one I'm going to just because of the reference that we made. In the sky like Mufasa. Bravo, sir.
Well played. That's
right,
a good
anything
one.
else, Robert, before we move on?
Dear Ridley Scott, please stop.
If I'm right and there's a 19-year-old co-ed whispering in Ridley Scott's ear like Grimer Wormtongue, somebody get her away from him before he hurts himself and everyone around him. And us.
So, if we're going to close this out, we have to talk about Ridley Scott's career trajectory very briefly.
Sure. I'm going to actually bring up his wiki real quick.
Oh, I looked this up earlier because my mom asked me a question. As she asked me, like, so what are you reviewing today? So I'm doing Gladiator II, and it kind of sucks. And she, well, the first one was good, wasn't it? I said, yeah, first one's fine. Mark and I talked about it a little bit ago.
Okay.
And Ridley Scott got brought up. So hang on.
Real quick. So people know where we are with this. We've reviewed, or I've reviewed on here. We reviewed The Martian, both Robert and I, in 2015.
Yep.
Ronnie and I reviewed The Last Duel. Alexis and I reviewed House of Gucci. Robert and I reviewed Napoleon, and now we're at Gladiator II. And I'm sorry, I missed Alien Covenant. We reviewed Alien Covenant.
Yes, we did.
Dorian and I reviewed Prometheus, but that was very recently. And then the rest of his, other than the Alien as part of the Alien podcast that we did years and years ago, that's all we've done of Ridley Scott stuff. Now go.
So Ridley Scott has given us legitimately, some of the best movies put to film.
Sure.
He has created classics. But the question was asked when I said that, because I brought up very briefly, like, yeah, Ridley Scott did this, and Ridley Scott's kind of lost the plot. So my mom asked me, so what was the last good movie he made? And I had to think about that for a minute.
My list.
Hang on. So I looked up his filmography,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked at him and went, okay, The Martian.
Yep.
Martian was the last good movie he made.
Yep.
The Martian is itself an aberration if you look at the trajectory of the 4 movies that precede it and the 4 movies that follow it.
Which are as follows. So, because I understand you're a smart boy who remembered all this stuff, but we are talking to an audience. Robin Hood, Prometheus, The Counselor, Exodus, Gods and Kings. Those all preceded The Martian. Post The Martian, Alien Covenant, All the Money in the World, The Last Duel, and House of Gucci, where you can see Adam Driver and Lady Gaga approximate sex between 2 mannequins.
I'm not going to say it. I'm going to leave that one in the holster. Point being, Ridley Scott's work has been in decline for a while. I've been trying to figure out why. And I really hate to be potentially morbid about this, because he was he was trending downward a little bit before the following incident. But his brother, Tony Scott, who also directed some classic films, Tony Scott, very talented director. Tony Scott passed away quite suddenly in 2012. And if you look at Ridley Scott's work that released in like 2013 and on, which is largely what Mark listed when he listed the 4 movies preceding the Martian, I don't know what effect or what like relationship those two had, but if Tony Scott was at least a steadying hand in the creative side of Ridley Scott, and that's been gone, you can see it. And his work has just never recovered.
All right. Well, that is our review of Gladiator II. With that said, here comes the wicked money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
It's an interesting thing that we're about to do because normally, like I said, whatever we're talking about is usually the number 1 movie of the weekend. And it's funny because we're not going to... By the time we get to Wicked, it'll have already been out 2 or 3 weeks.
It'll still okay. You want my hot take about this?
It'll still be number one. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Maybe Moana 2, but then Wicked again.
Nope.
Um,
I don't think Moana 2 does it.
maybe we'll see. It's not worth fighting about. My point, the only reason why I even started to talk that way was we usually talk about like what it did its opening weekend, typically a movie's best weekend, and then every preceding conversation after that is we watch its decline. When we get to Wicked, we'll have a slightly different conversation about how it's been doing for the past 3 weeks as like an opening conversation.
Yeah.
You know, did it maintain, like we normally in other words, we normally predict, will it maintain its hold? Will it not maintain its hold? How far will the drop be? We'll know all that. We'll know all that in 3 weeks. And we'll have a very clear picture of what exactly Wicked is doing, as opposed to the usual sort of speculation that we do. And the only kind of speculation, frankly, the only kind of speculation that matters. The kind of speculation that we do on this show. So anyway, that said, Gladiator II is a movie.
Allegedly. Technically, it falls within that category of things.
As of November 24th, 2024, Gladiator II has grossed $55.5 million in the U.S. and Canada, and $165.5 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $221 million. In the U.S. and Canada, Gladiator II was on a budget. Sorry, forgot my job. On a budget of $250 million in Marvel money.
Good grief!
Yeah, 250 Marvel monies. This thing has currently made 220 million Marvel monies. So
it might squeak over the $500 million mark, but this is not going to be. When you factor in marketing, this is not going to be profitable.
No, if it is, it's going to be barely profitable. Like it's not going to be the home run. It's not going to be the home run the other one was.
Not even close.
Where am I?
Opened in the United States and Canada.
Gladiator II is projected to gross around $60 million from 3,500 theaters in its opening weekend. It will compete with Universal's Wicked, which it did, in a release can we talk about this for a moment? That has been compared to 2023's Barbenheimer due to the contrasting target audiences. Now, hang on.
No.
I really fucking hate. I'm gonna remove the screen for this. I really fucking hate that this happens. So, people need to understand what Barbenheimer really was. Warner Brothers, who had Barbie in development since the year of the flood.
Yeah.
Picked a date in July, a safe date, a summer date, but not May, not June,
not February,
July, not February, not November,
or what is it? It's August.
Yeah, they picked July, the final chapter in that year's summer blockbuster, and the end of July, not even July 4th weekend. They picked the end of July.
They did,
and Warner Brothers, in this story, the villain of the story, some might say, done pissed off Christopher Nolan.
Big money Chris Nolan.
Big money, big dick Chris Nolan. Because of what happened with Tenet, which wasn't entirely Warner Brothers' fault. There was a pandemic going on, and they made what they thought were sane decisions at the time. And Chris Nolan, bit of a diva, saw what they did, said, fuck you and your pandemic. And they were like, that's not how this works, you psycho. And he was like, it most certainly is.
Well, in fairness, there were some other.
Yeah,
that was
stuff.
That was the last thing that broke the camel's back, but it wasn't a straw.
So anyway, so Warner Brothers and Christopher Nolan divorced, as all good couples do. And there was a bidding war for big money Chris Nolan, which Universal won, and they gave away the store to get him. And Christopher Nolan said, and one of those things was, there can't be, I can't remember what the specifics of this were, but there was something like there can't be a Universal movie of a certain kind or whatever, like 60 days before and 60 days prior. So they landed on the end of July for Oppenheimer, which I guarantee you he didn't tell them when they gave him the check.
Probably.
Before they gave him the check. it was very much like, so we've given you the check and we've given you a small island and a small child and everything else you've asked for, and a pint of unicorn's blood so that you remain young and beautiful forever. Now, Christopher Nolan, what are you going to give us? And he went Oppenheimer, and they all killed themselves. It's the end of that.
Several of them moved to the ledge, and then when they saw the returns, they stepped back very quickly and went, "No, we made a good decision."
Yeah, sure. My point is, it's not like they looked at each other and was just like, what would be funny if Big Dick Christopher Nolan's atomic bomb movie were married to Warner Brothers pseudo-feminist toy movie. And here's the thing. That wasn't like the Barbenheimer thing wasn't a purposeful marketing thing. It was people on Twitter.
Yeah,
Going,
it was organic.
Wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if I saw Barbie and Oppenheimer in the same day? And it caught fire as stupid shit does. The way memes do. The way the Minions did.
Minions.
And so it was a very organic, once-in-a-lifetime, really funny cultural event of, ha-ha, pink and pretty. Ha-ha, Japanese death.
Death of the ego, death of the human race.
Sure. And and people had fun with it. Here's the other thing. We're 3 years out from the pandemic. People are just now starting to have fun again. We're out in the culture. We're doing things. People are, less afraid to walk around without masks by 2023. It was like, God, it feels good to be a human again. That's it. That's all that was. So this constant thing of go back through the year. How many times something was? Did we fucking do this with the Bob Marley movie, which came out the same weekend, I think, as Mean Girls?
Bob Meanly?
Yeah, there was a couple of other instances this year of there were two movies, and I know this because I do the schedule with Robert, and I go, we can't see both of these things, so we pick one, and we pick the one that we're interested in or we think will do better than the other one.
Remember not too long after Barbenheimer when they went, how can we try and recreate this stupidity? And they went Saw Patrol because Saw came out the same day as the Paw Patrol movie. Did that go anywhere? No, it did not.
No, so and here's the thing. Originally it was Moana 2 and Wicked. So that it was like Womana or some shit like that. Mo Wicked or Models. I don't know. But it was, they were trying to merge. Yes, they were trying to merge Moana 2 with Wicked to no avail. And then the people at Universal went, fuck your couch, and fucking moved it to the Friday before. And now it's like Glicked. I hate this culture and everyone in it. I can't believe we're this stupid.
Especially when Whittiator is right there.
Ugh. Now I hate you too. All of you are terrible.
Look, that's just the superior portmanteau is all I'm saying. It's still stupid.
The film made $22 million on its first day, including $6.5 million from Thursday night previews. It went on to debut to $55 million, finishing second behind Wicked. No shit. It marked the biggest opening weekend of Denzel Washington's career. Really? Wow. Good for him.
Hang on, serious question.
Yeah.
What do you think he's been in that would have opened bigger?
Glory?
A movie from 1987 you thought would have done more than $55 million in its open. So I don't know the exact year Glory came out. I know it's old. It's like 90 maybe.
I'm curious about something.
Okay.
I mean, it's just me and you. I don't really.
Denzel Washington's filmography and go through this real fast.
Just fast enough because.
Okay. No, I'm down. I'm
curious to see if he's ever been in a major movie, like a Marvel type movie. Like I know he wasn't in a Marvel movie, but.
Okay, no, he's not. Well, look, he's never been in Jurassic Park, Marvel, Star Wars, or Mission Impossible.
Okay. So.
Or Fast and the Furious.
So Malcolm X is probably the biggest thing he was in from 1981 to 1992. And that in total did $73 million on a $35 million budget.
Now, once again, in fairness, what year did that come out?
1992.
Okay, so you can do some adjustment for inflation there, but it still wouldn't do this.
Okay. Philadelphia, where he was opposite Tom Hanks at like in 1993 at like the height of the AIDS epidemic.
This was a very important movie in a lot of respects, but not going to be a giant blockbuster.
On a $26 million budget, made $206 million. So it was very successful. And
that was a hugely successful film, but that was not a.
Right.
Philadelphia wasn't an opening weekend movie.
Yeah.
That's a movie with legs, not a movie with a big bang.
Not The Hurricane.
Not even
Remember
close.
The Titans, even though those clips are now all over TikTok.
Remember the Titans is a perfectly fine movie for what it is, but again, is that going to like blow the doors off the theaters? No.
Man on Fire had a $70 million budget and it made $130 million.
That was kind of a miss from old Tony Scott. It's a good movie, but kind of a miss.
He was in a Ridley Scott directed American Gangster,
which is a perfectly fine crime epic, but not a blockbuster.
$100 million budget, made almost $270 million. So
profitable, but is this going to like beat down the doors?
Let's see. The Magnificent Seven.
That was a miss.
That was review it. Yep, that was $107 million budget, made $162 million.
Yep.
No, he has never. I mean, like the real question here is: has he been in a major motion picture with a high IP? And the answer is no.
Yep.
It's been some minor ones, like he's been in things like The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, which
remake. Remake, but yeah,
remake. He's been in The Equalizer, which had a sequel.
Had 3. 3 movies, so 2 sequels.
Yeah, but yeah, all right. Wow, good for him. He certainly earned it.
Denzel does kind of what he wants to do, but I mean this in all sincerity. If we look at like movies that do giant numbers opening weekend, and I tell you, the man has never been in a Star Wars movie, a Marvel movie, a DC movie. He's never been in
a Disney movie either.
Any Disney movie.
Right.
You're right. Any Disney movie. A Fast and the Furious movie, or anything related to Michael Bay. What's left for giant opening weekends?
That's a really good point. All right. So finishing up with the box office. Also topped 8 Mile for the best opening for a November R-rated movie. Could we throw more qualifiers in that sentence?
Okay. We're trying real hard there.
The film was released in 63 territories 1 week ahead of the U.S. release and earned $87 million. The biggest opening weekend of Ridley Scott's career. Well, good for Ridley Scott. All right.
I'm gonna let me personally throw a little bit of a qualifier onto that one. My hunch is if we adjusted some of his earlier stuff for inflation, this would not be his biggest opening. The biggest opening of his career.
Wicked, no surprise here, was the #1 movie of the weekend. More on that in a few weeks. The domestic gross is 112. It was over twice that of what Gladiator made. Gladiator came in at 55. Again, these are just domestic numbers. We'll talk about worldwide in a moment.
Oh, look at Red One's drop.
58.
That's a rough drop for a movie that opened kind of soft.
Yep. Bonhoeffer debuted at 4. Venom fell from 2 to 5, 5 weeks out. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever fell from 3 to 6, 3 weeks out.
That's, in fairness to the Best Christmas Pageant Ever, that seems to have been appropriately budgeted and looks like it's having decent legs for what it is.
Heretic, which was reviewed, and the clip is up now on our YouTube page. Movies that don't suck and some that do, fellas. Fell from 4 to 7, 3 weeks out. The Wild Robot has been listed in contention for an Oscar.
As it should be.
Fell from 5 to 8. Conclave, 7 to 9. Smile 2, currently PVOD, 6 to 10, and that will be on the next episode of Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do, unless they change their minds. A Real Pain fell from 9 to 11. Anora, which is getting Best Picture contention, 6 weeks out from Neon, fell from 10 to 12. Flow debuted at 18. Sabbath Queen, 22. Porcelain War, my issues with Taco Bell.
Was gonna say, like, there's a lot of people you and I both know who could say that's the subtitle of their autobiography.
All right. So here we are at the end of all things. No movement from I think the last time we did this. It's still Inside Out, Deadpool and Wolverine, Despicable Me, Dune 2, Godzilla x Kong, Kung Fu Panda, Venom, which surpassed I just now realized that that's the only movement, and that hurts me. That cuts me deep.
Yeah, Venom did overtake Beetlejuice by a little bit.
Oh,
Might get ahead of Kung Fu Panda 4. It's not catching Godzilla Kong.
no. Beetlejuice is at 451. Bad Boys at 404. And rounding out the top 10 is a paltry Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at 397. All right.
Hey, scroll down. Well, let's find Wicked, because it's actually fairly high.
Wicked is at 24 with $162 million worldwide for the weekend. So let's talk about that for a second. I'm going to get out of the page, though. So Wicked was, at one point I had heard it was as high as a $250 million weekend, at which point I said to you, well, the game is over, that it's going to make $1 billion. I don't know. $162 million weekend, it's not bad.
That's
It's
certainly
nice.
nothing to sneeze at.
It's nice, but he's too big.
Well, hang on, just for the sake of transparency, since we're going to have this conversation very briefly, what's the budget for Wicked?
The budget for Wicked...
I imagine it's 200 plus.
Yeah, well, here's the here's the thing. It is 150 million, and they're only showing the budget for this half of it. Like,
okay,
this is a thing where I think they shot both of them at the same time. Obviously, only one of them is locked and out right now. They're still going to work on the second one, but I feel like they shot the whole thing at once.
Probably. Okay, so.
And they're only showing the budget for this half of it.
Okay, so the budget for the whole thing is going to be north of 3, probably close to 4 when you combine them together. Okay.
Right.
That is not terribly surprising. So my hunch with Wicked, having seen the opening weekend now, which is a successful opening weekend by any measure, it's going to make money. It's going to be one of the top 5 movies of this year in all probability.
You're talking about more than worldwide gross.
Yeah, worldwide.
Okay.
Worldwide, we're going to be top 5 easily. I'm a little unsure about the $1 billion mark.
Yeah, I don't know if it hits $1 billion. If it had hit 250, that's it. You know, we're done here.
At that point, getting the rest of the way over the course of of like 6 to 8 weeks in the theater, very, very doable. Where we are now, little bit less clear to me.
So the calendar goes like this. We've said it a couple times now. We got Moana 2 this Wednesday, the day after tomorrow. So that has the entire Thanksgiving corridor to make money. As to what comes out the 6th, who knows? Who cares? But the 10th is Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, and Kraven the Hunter.
Boy, I'm worried about War of the Rohirrim.
I don't think either one of those is going to do very well. I think they're both going to fall flat.
Probably, but Kraven I think deserves it. War of the Rohirrim, the trailer did not give me a lot of confidence in that. The desire to insert a girl boss into that was a real dubious decision.
I think the 20th, you have Sonic the Hedgehog, which is
that's gonna Sonic 3 is gonna do gangbusters. I think.
Well, it's being counter-programmed with Mufasa, but I don't think Mufasa has the audience I think it does.
I think Mufasa was greenlit when everyone was still very high on the $1 billion from the quote unquote live action Lion King.
Right. It's kind of like where Snow White is now, where they're committed to this because they have to be. They're not going to David Zaslav this.
Did you see the trailer for Snow White? The full trailer?
No.
It looks so bad. This is a very nitty-gritty like film thing. You can tell it does not look the way it was intended to look when it was shot, and that they have desperately tried to pump up color saturation to compensate for what were bad test screenings.
I'm sure. I don't think it's going to do well. I think this thing is going to be a major blight on Disney's.
It's already been a blight on them. Like
between that and Captain America, they're gonna be like, we're gonna, what are we supposed to do here? We've spent $1 zillion making these stupid movies.
Yeah, Captain Falcon with its 3 reshoots.
Yeah. What I really want to
Basically
talk
the
about,
whole thing.
what I really want to talk about is girls be singing. They do, Robert. Girls like to sing. They have a song in their hearts and they want to share it with you. You, Robert.
I
Winfree.
have seen no evidence in my life to support that assertion, but I will go with your premise.
Girls
assertion.
be singing and shopping. But I'm here to talk about the singing for right now. And do you know what's going to when Wicked starts to lose steam towards the end of December? Because the whole point of this exercise was to kind of walk through the weeks coming up. Kraven the Hunter, War of the Rohirrim, all of that. None of that competes with Wicked.
Not really, no.
The only competitor with Wicked is Moana 2. And
Yeah.
then by the time we get to Christmas, Sonic will compete in the same space, but not totally. It'll compete because it is also going to be a well-received, going to be a highly seen movie. A lot of families will be coming out for Sonic. So
I mean, your son is gonna come out of that movie and go, well, I don't know that life has any meaning anymore for me. It's peaked. This is it. This is everything I ever wanted out of my existence.
Probably. My point. What's going to give Wicked second legs is Christmas is when they've announced the sing-alongs.
Oh God, why?
I believe I said it already because women be singing. Shake your head at me. Shake your head at genetics.
Genetic component in your the chromosomal order of large gamete producing biological females compels them to sing.
That is correct. And sing in unison in crowds. I don't make the rules, man. I just follow them.
Okay. Again, I have seen no evidence to support that claim in my life, but my life is a small subset of evidence.
Let me ask you one question. It's a yes or no question.
Okay.
How many sing-alongs have you been to?
That's not a yes or a no question.
The answer is no.
I mean, the answer is none, but that's not a yes or a no question.
I love when your personality type just gets hung up on stuff like that. It amuses me greatly. Yeah, you've been to all of none. You want to know how many I've been to?
You go to naked karaoke every other weekend,
every other week. Yeah. So, never mind my naked karaoke habits. I've been to a lot of sing-alongs. A lot of sing-alongs. A lot of girls in those audiences. And let me tell you how there are signs up at theaters right now saying, please stop singing in the movies, you whores. You'll get your sing-along December 25th.
I really hope one of them says that exactly. That's an actual quote. Dear childless cat ladies, please stop singing in the movie theater.
Please stop caterwauling in our movie. You'll get your chance to sing off-key.
No one can. Yeah, 25th. There are people here who just want to watch the movie, not listen to you try to insert yourself into it.
Speaking of childless cat ladies, my daughter, when I told her that I will take her not only to Wicked in the coming weeks, but I will also take her again when the sing-along comes out. And she went, Father!
She calls you father.
She calls me father. She says, I love you. Thank you. This is what I need in my life, to sit in the theater to watch a 3-hour movie I've already seen and sing along to it. And I said, I know.
And have a bunch of 40-year-old sad people with no prospect in their lives join you in song.
Yep. This is why the Chinese will win. But I'm a good dad, and that's really all that's important.
You know what? You are a good father, and bless you for what you are going to put yourself through on that cold, cold December day.
Anyway, the point of that entire diatribe was that this will get a second set of legs. This will get its second win when the sing-alongs come out, because as I just mentioned, that's going to draw crowds too, and it'll draw a crowd over a 2-week period where kids aren't in school, so their moms will take them to go. Their dads will be at work, possibly, possibly eating a gun. But the mothers, the mothers.
Well, that got dark in a hurry.
Well, all men want to die. We've already established this.
In the land of Hollywood, they do, sure.
But the mothers will take their children to the sing-along, and they will sing along with Elphaba as she tells people that there's no such thing as evil. And with that said,
Yeah.
the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Well, there'll be no joy in Mudville tonight.
How? I can almost go along with the audience score being decent, but the critics, how?
Yep.
Have we forgotten what good movies look like?
All critics, it's 71%. Top critics, it's 63%.
That's slightly better.
All audience is 77%, but the verified audience is 84%. And the AI writes,
We have no hope.
none. Echoing its predecessor.
Echoing.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Well, upping the blood sport and camp, Gladiator II is an action extravaganza that derives much of its strength and honor from Denzel Washington's scene-stealing performances.
You people are just incapable of being honest about crap like this, and it makes me sick.
Randy Polish of Process Media. Ridley Scott's return to the Coliseum is an entertaining, imperfect mosaic of tones and ideas that never quite fit together.
Okay, that should not be a fresh review.
Let's see here. Oh my God, even Randy Jones didn't like it. Oh my
Ooh,
God.
but come on, read Rendy then if we're gonna reference it.
All right, Randy Jones of Randy Reviews. It could have stirred a conversation to add needed density to this simplistic popcorn blockbuster encased in middling CGI and an underwritten and frankly dull lead.
That's an overworked sentence, but okay, you're not wrong in your point.
The future ex-Mrs. We haven't heard from your ex-wife in a while. The future ex-Mrs. Robert Winfree.
Not by accident.
Carla Renata of the Carvi Film Critic. Gladiator II.
You can't even read this with a straight face.
I popped myself. That's what's funny. Gladiator II is the one movie this year, other than Wicked, that absolutely been screened on the big screen. Let's try that one more time, Carla. Gladiator II is the one movie this year, other than Wicked, that absolutely been screened, because women be shopping, on a big screen. Denzel Washington delivers the crown jewel of his career with the cinematic gift of Macrinus. All right.
I beg of you to watch that man's filmography more in depth if you think this is the best he has to offer. That's bad English. That's bad writing. That's a bad conclusion to have drawn. Bad critic. Bad.
Jeff Mitchell of Art House Filmwire. Gladiator II fights, but fails to capture the magic of the first film.
Not wrong, but that's kind of lazy.
Stephanie Zacharik of Time Magazine, former magazine top critic. Even if Gladiator II is essentially an unapologetic retread of its predecessor, all of these actors are fun to watch. No, they
aren't.
Though none stands taller, literally or figuratively, than Denzel Washington.
The number of people bending over backwards to try and find praise for Denzel in this, and then use that as justification for this entire monstrosity of a film, is frankly pathetic.
Nick Johnston of Vanyaland. Gladiator II might not be its predecessor's equal in all regards, but Scott remains unparalleled at threading the needle between myth and history without sacrificing any of the spectacle.
I'm going to. Okay. Once again, I apologize for the profanity, but bullshit. Threading the needle of history with this is nothing but fiction. This is a giant problem. You know, I was going to save this for some time when we actually talked about Ridley Scott's filmography in more detail. He's got an incredibly bad habit when he tries to tackle pseudo-historical narratives or historical stories, or even real history that he then plays around with, of taking complicated, interesting scenarios and problems and reducing them to the simplest, dumbest, most asinine bits of good versus evil that you can imagine. I am looking squarely at you, Kingdom of Heaven, and Napoleon, by the way, if you need some more specific examples. This is hardly an exercise in Roman history at all. It is hardly an exercise in mythology because none of these people are even stories. Stop that. He does not like you. Ridley Scott will never notice you or invite you to a party.
My arch enemy, Michael Medved of the Michael Medved Show. Our feud continues, Michael. I'll get you someday. The visual splendors of this...
When you're going to get him is after he dies. You will go pee on his grave.
I hope. The visual splendors of this new film easily... Okay, Robert, I need you to listen to this. All your ears. The visual splendors of this new film easily equal and sometimes exceed the indelible visions of the first film. I don't think he knows what any of those words mean.
I am in wholehearted agreement with you.
Good God.
Name me one visual sequence from this movie that in any way approximates the visual sequences from the first one. Any of them.
Sarah Michelle Fetters of MovieFreak.com, top critic. For all my misgivings, I was entertained by Gladiator II. That's great for you, Toots.
If you understand the disdain with which that line is uttered in the first movie, you would not be saying that about yourself when reviewing the second.
The future Xmas is Robert Winfree the First, Tanya Lamb of Lola Lamb Chops. So we got them both in tonight. Well, Gladiator 2 does fall short in many ways. Yes, we are still entertained. Oh my God.
You speak in... Okay. You do not get to speak on my behalf, even if we are married. You understand me? Never. I was not entertained by anything related to this movie. I accept that Denzel Washington's performance had screen presence, but was I entertained? No, it was too nonsensical.
All right. Let's do one more of these. See if we can find another friend or future wife.
Well, Jeff's on here somewhere, and he did not like this movie at all.
No.
Well, I mean, I know he reviewed it, so I don't know if it's up on Rotten Tomatoes yet, but...
Chris Joyce of Movies and Munchies YouTube. And yet, here we toil in obscurity.
And here we are.
Yeah. I was entranced. Are you easily distracted there, Chris Joyce? I was entranced by performances and thrilled, I tell you, thrilled by the set designs and intensity of the action pieces. The story is a little overcomplicated for my pea brain, reducing the impact of its entirety thanks to a lack of development and focus on the many established arcs.
You word saladed your way through that. Second of all, you are not in... There's no way the cardboard cutout of Pedro Pascal they trotted across the screen actually gave you that kind of a feeling, or...
Lupe Rodriguez Haas of Cinemovie.tv. The Ridley Scott sequel delivers exactly what fans want.
The hell it does.
A gripping story, brutal action, and compelling performances. It answers Maximus's... Oh no. It answers Maximus's iconic question, are you not entertained, with a resounding yes. Nobody understands that line.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I must implore you to go watch the actual sequence wherein that line is uttered in the original movie. Understand that that is spoken with derision, ridicule, and hatred for everyone in the audience, as Maximus says that. You now saying with a resounding yes, yes, I am entertained, in relation to that line is a gross misread akin to going, you know, Patrick Bateman wasn't really a bad guy.
Nate Adams, the only critic. The only
critic, one.
Sir. Only one. Consider me somewhat entertained.
You are as bemused as was what's-his-face as a character. Just no. Useless review.
Some would say that women be singing.
Well, others you certainly say that.
Others would say that it is indulgent and possibly mean and overwrought that we do that in segment. But I tell you that every time we do it, just about, I am convinced that we must do the good work of exposing these frauds for what they are. Some of which are given the job as critics, English language critics, a language clearly they don't understand.
I wish we didn't have to do this sequence. Mark, this is the most important thing we do on this podcast. It's not the most. Hang on. I mean this in all sincerity. Like, the fact that we review the movie, that's fun. I like doing it. I like talking with you. I like talking with our guests. The fact that we actually talk about the money is one of the things that differentiates us from most other people who talk about movies, because they don't like to talk about that stuff in general.
Unless it suits their opinion.
True. The fact that we do it as a matter of course, not a matter of, hey, look at my point, it's so good, is what separates us. And the fact that no one else is willing to hold up the big mirror of these idiots to themselves, this is actually the important thing that we do, is looking at the landscape of this profession and what a wasteland it is, the likes of which T.S. Eliot could scarcely imagine or capture in the English tongue.
Radulich is truth to power in Croatian.
I believe
final thought on Gladiator II. All right. This Thursday is Thanksgiving.
Woo-hoo.
However, I was only going to do one podcast week, but I have my kids today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, and then Wednesday night to go back to their mom to do Thanksgiving with her side of the world, and I get them back Saturday. So, Robert, as you know, I am a man of tradition, a traditional man, some might say.
With all your naked karaoke and
I traditionally am naked. All the traditions of my forefathers who did not wear pants. But we have, as you know,
it's part of your religion, or you will not be lectured by the patriarchy about conformity.
That's right. We have been doing alternative commentaries, holiday-oriented alternative commentaries. Usually, me and my son, or because Jason feels unloved, Jason will join us. We've done in the past. We've done Ben-Hur for Easter. We did Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Hang on, I have to ask, which version of Ben-Hur did you do, the original or the remake?
The remake.
That was a mistake.
Yes, it was. That was, as my son said. Oof. We've done Paul Blart Mall Cop for Thanksgiving, and I said, okay, I would like to take the Radulich tradition of doing a commentary that's holiday oriented, especially around Thanksgiving, and merge it with another obsession that my family has come to find out about itself: our love of animals on drugs. So, for your entertainment pleasure and your holiday cheer, we shall celebrate Thanksgiving Eve with an alternative commentary of Crackoon, which came out earlier this year. Your aneurysm showing. I texted my son while he
Hang on, stop.
Hang on. I texted my son while he was with Melissa to tell him about this, and he went, "When are you coming to get me?"
Off air, I have a joke for you about this, but it has to be off air. I can't do it over broadcast.
Okay. All right. Moving on. So
I'm not kidding. When we're off air, I will tell you what crossed my mind when you just told me that.
I think I know where you're going with this, but anyway, so yes, myself, my genius son Jonas, who's very enthusiastic about this, and his pig-hosted sister, who was being talked into this against her will.
Clearly,
we'll do an alternative commentary for Crackoon, and I hope you will enjoy the entertainment we bring you for the holidays here at the Rattle Legend Broadcasting Network. Sunday, Sessions is back. No, Sunday is nothing. However, next Monday we've got Moana 2, and then Thursday, I will be a guest on a triple feature hosted by Dorian. We are once again looking at comic book adaptations. This time we are looking at Dick Tracy, The Shadow and the Phantom, who also share the dubious honor of having come out after Batman 1989 and being clearly influenced by that movie.
I would push back on the Phantom being too influenced by it, but that's a slightly different discussion. I feel that I feel The Phantom gets a little unfairly maligned. There's some really good elements to that movie. The Shadow, by contrast, very clearly trying to be Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah. So I watched Dick Tracy today with Jonas, and we had a good fun time with that.
What a strange movie that is.
He was just, well, it's funny, every villain that was on screen, he was like, why are they so hideously deformed like the orcs from Lord of the Rings? I'm going to have nightmares because of this movie.
I imagine Prune Face got to him a little bit.
It really did. So that's what's going on the Rattleton Broadcasting Network. Robert, I hear you have other podcasts and paint houses.
Well, I don't paint houses in either the mob speak or the literal sense.
I finally remembered what I said to Evan Bevins. Robert Winfree. Tonight, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughs. Now tell everybody where they can find your ass.
You're too proud of that.
I'm way too proud.
I
But I ain't too proud to beg.
That could be like the poll on a Rotten Tomatoes review. Like that's how bad that is.
All right, go on, do your plugs while you answer this text.
You can find me covering mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. I cover WWE SmackDown on Fridays, UFC events on Saturdays. If you want more in-depth discussion of the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. This last one is a review of the UFC event in China that started at 1 a.m. my time. That was a long day. Going straight from SmackDown to not sleeping to the UFC to then finally getting a few hours of sleep at like 8 in the morning. Yeah, that was a thing. But the event was pretty good. Again, my report's over in the MMA zone, or you can listen to the podcast where I talk about it. This latest episode of the podcast features about an hour of me talking about Conor McGregor being found civilly liable for sexual assault and some of the circus around that. So I apologize. It's a different kind of episode for this one. So there's a chunk of it that is me talking about stuff related to that, related to bits of sexual violence in the culture. And, it's not pleasant. I can't pretend that it is. And if you want to skip it, I completely understand. There is no UFC event this Saturday, but I will have WWE SmackDown, which was taped on Friday. Because it's very close to Thanksgiving, and the WWE, even under Vince, had not been quite so heartless as they had been in the past over the last handful of years. So that's taped. I will be covering it anyway, so tune in for that over there if you're so inclined. And yeah, Moana 2 next week, where we once again examine why things that were meant to be straight to streaming should not be given IMAX releases.
With that said, folks, we thank you for our discussion of Wicked and Gladiator 2. For Robert Winfree, I need to get a drink because I've been coughing. Be well, be safe, and behave.